There are two different types of data that you'll be working with in your program evaluation. Collecting one or both can help you understand your outputs and better assess your outcomes. The first is quantifiable or measurable data. This type of data deals with numbers and can be easily measured. It can sometimes be seen as more objective, since numbers are not influenced by any other factors. There's a few different ways to collect and find measurable data, and you may already have systems in place without knowing it. Tracking activity and program delivery could be done through activity logs, listing tasks or activities completed, tracking volunteer hours, recording number of clients served, and/or online activity. This can help you determine your outputs in an easy way. To help measure specific outcomes, you can use quantifiable data collection tools such as testing skill or knowledge to assess increase in education or knowledge, develop and evaluate success indicators to determine improvement in employment rates or other outcomes, and track health outcomes with medical tools or support from health systems. The other type of data you can look to collect is experiential data, also known as descriptive or qualitative data. This type of information is sometimes seen as more meaningful than quantifiable data, and is often anecdotal in nature, instead of using numbers. As an example, you could ask a stakeholder about their experience, such as a volunteer's testimony of their satisfaction, or a client sharing their journey of working with the volunteers in the organization. This data, however, is more subjective and can rely on the opinions and context of the individual providing the information. Collecting experiential or qualitative data can be done with a few tools. The first one we'll look at is surveys, which can also be useful in collecting measurable data as well. Surveys are a quick, cost-effective way to reach large numbers of people. They can help you collect a large amount of information with varying levels of detail. Do you want responses on a scale, or are you looking for short answers? Surveys give you the flexibility and opportunity to collect different kinds of data from a lot of areas. As a useful data collection tool, surveys can also be distributed online or in person. You can use electronic tools to make surveys easier, such as SurveyMonkey to build and send out surveys, or Excel to input and track collected data. You should determine which type of survey and method of distribution based on your stakeholders and the kind of data you're looking for. If you're working with volunteers who don't often check their email, then an in-person survey would be useful. But if you're asking staff for feedback on volunteers, an online survey could fit into their day easily. It's important when creating a survey to think about a few best practices to follow. Make your surveys as easy to understand and to answer as possible. To do this, make sure you stick to one idea per question. For example, instead of asking, "Are you satisfied with the programs run by this volunteer, and would you return to another program run by this volunteer?" you can ask two questions. Are you satisfied with the program run by this volunteer? And, if this volunteer ran a program again, would you attend? Don't introduce bias into your questions or response questions. Try not to frame any question in a positive or negative way, or give clues on how you'd like the stakeholders to answer. Keep your response options similar for all questions. This is especially important if you're going to use a rating scale, such as 1 to 10. Be consistent with which end is negative and which end is positive. In this example, the first questions ask for a participant to rate something from 1, strongly disagree, to 10, strongly agree. The next question, however, asks participants to rate something from 1, extremely satisfied, to 10, extremely dissatisfied. Instead, the negative end should be on the same side both times, and consistent throughout. Another very useful way to collect primarily experiential or qualitative data is to conduct interviews. Interviews are a great way to collect in-depth, detailed information from a limited number of people. Essentially, they are formal or informal conversations that you can use to gather information. Since the data would be collected from one person at a time, and interviewing can be a lengthy process, it may not be a practical way to get information from a large number of people. However, if you only need data from a few people and want that information to be very detailed, then interviews would be a good choice. Interviews can be structured or semi-structured. A structured interview is like reading a survey and writing down responses, including giving participants possible response options. This can be useful for specific information and gives you the opportunity to ask for clarification or follow-up. Semi-structured interviews might have preset questions but can be more open-ended and informal, allowing participants to elaborate on their thoughts and help guide the discussion. Interviews can also be unstructured, maybe relying on a specific theme or starting point, but mainly an informal conversation, where the interviewee does most of the talking. These can be useful in revealing interesting information, but they aren't always practical. No matter which type of interview you do, take note of a couple interview etiquette tips. Interviewers should remain neutral. During interviews with some or lots of structure, interviewers should remain consistent when interviewing different people, and ensure questions are as on topic as possible.